Welcome to my channel, where your adventure into the future starts right now. Step into a vibrant universe filled with groundbreaking technology, breathtaking alien landscapes, and exhilarating sci-fi narratives that challenge your imagination. From daring explorations of distant galaxies to haunting journeys through dystopian societies, we uncover the most captivating stories and innovative ideas that will shape the world of tomorrow. Subscribe today and join us on an incredible intergalactic voyage that promises to inspire and thrill. Humanity's story had always been one of survival. From the very beginning, when the first humans walked the Earth, there was an unyielding force inside them, a drive that refused to die, that continued to push forward even in the face of the greatest odds. It was a story that resonated through the ages, an epic tale of overcoming adversity, of thriving despite overwhelming challenges. And as humanity expanded beyond their home planet and into the vast, uncharted expanse of space, their history became not only their legacy but an inspiration to those who looked up at the stars and saw themselves as underdogs in a universe full of mighty civilizations. For centuries, humanity had struggled against the odds. Their early days were marked by conflict, scarcity, and the constant threat of extinction. The species began in small bands, struggling to find food, battling the elements, and defending themselves from predators. Even in the face of these primal struggles, there was something about humans, a kind of tenacity that allowed them to endure. They learned to adapt, to innovate, to work together, and to find solutions where none seemed to exist. This innate resilience became the foundation of their civilization. It was a constant thread that ran through every era, from the stone tools of their ancestors to the towering spaceships they would one day launch into the stars. As humanity expanded into space, their reputation as survivors quickly spread across the galaxy. Other species, many of which were far more advanced in terms of technology, looked at humans with a kind of bemusement. How could such a primitive species, once plagued by disease, war, and environmental collapse, become so successful on the interstellar stage? But humanity had a gift that transcended technology, their incredible ability to survive and adapt in any environment. They had done it on Earth, surviving ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and the occasional existential crisis, and they were doing it now in the vastness of space. The first few centuries of humanity's interstellar journey were fraught with hardship. They made enemies, faced resource shortages, and encountered countless obstacles that would have destroyed lesser species. There were wars with alien races that had no patience for what they saw as humanity's primitive ways, as well as deadly plagues, natural disasters on colonized planets, and the constant struggle to keep their ships and colonies in one piece. Yet, time and time again, humanity pulled through. Each disaster, each setback only strengthened them, forging a species that was not only capable of surviving but thriving against impossible odds. Every failure was a lesson, and every success, no matter how small, was a testament to their determination to live and to grow. It was this history, this tale of overcoming the impossible, that would inspire others. The first to take notice were the underdog species that lived in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, those who had long been overlooked, oppressed, or relegated to the fringes of the cosmic order. These were the races that had been pushed down by more powerful civilizations, those who had been enslaved, colonized, or ignored. They were the ones who lived on the margins, who watched the great empires of the galaxy rise and fall, often powerless to do anything about it. But when they looked to humanity, they saw something that no one else had seen before. They saw the possibility of hope. Humanity's survival against insurmountable odds was not just a story of success. It was a story of defiance, of choosing to rise above the status quo, even when every force in the universe seemed aligned against them. For the underdog species, who had lived under the thumb of more powerful empires, humanity's history was a beacon. They saw themselves in the struggles of the humans. They understood what it meant to fight for survival, to defy the odds, and to continue to exist when others had written them off. These underdog species saw in humanity the proof that no matter how powerless they might seem, they, too, could rise. They, too, could survive. One such species was the Kitar, a race of insectoid beings from a planet on the farthest edge of the galaxy. For centuries, they had been subjugated by the Zythrans, a warlike and technologically advanced species that saw the Kitar as little more than tools for labor and conquest. The Zythrans had decimated their population in countless raids, stripping their planet of its resources and forcing the Kitar into a life of servitude. Despite their sheer numbers and adaptability, the Kitar had never been able to break free of their oppressors. They lived in the shadow of the Zythrans' overwhelming power, powerless to change their fate. When the Kitar first encountered the humans, they did so out of curiosity. Humanity had been making waves in the galaxy for decades, and their reputation for survival preceded them. The Kitar were intrigued by the stories they had heard, stories of humans who had been oppressed, colonized, and on the brink of annihilation, only to rise again and again. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered before. The Kitar, who had only known subjugation, saw in humanity a strength they had never known. They saw the potential for revolution, for liberation, for change. As they began to study humanity more closely, the Kitar realized that the key to humanity's survival lay not just in their strength, but in their unity. Time and time again, humans had faced impossible challenges, only to come together as one people to fight against those forces. The Kitar, who had always been divided and scattered, learned from this lesson. They understood that if they were to break free from their Zythran overlords, they would need to set aside their differences and unite for the common cause. It was not an easy lesson to learn, but it was one that gave them hope. Inspired by humanity's unrelenting spirit, the Kitar began to organize in secret. They worked in the shadows, building networks, sharing knowledge, and learning the tactics that had allowed humanity to survive against overwhelming odds. They studied humanity's history of rebellion, its revolutionary movements, and the ways in which humans had used their creativity and ingenuity to overcome obstacles. They knew that they could never hope to match the Zythrans in terms of raw firepower or technology, but they could match humanity in one important area: the will to fight. Slowly but surely, the Kitar began to rise. At first, it was small acts of defiance, refusing to comply with orders, sabotaging Zythran infrastructure, and freeing their fellow Kitar from enslavement. But as they gained momentum, the resistance grew. They adopted humanity's methods of warfare, using guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and sabotage to weaken the Zythran Empire from within. They used the Zythrans' own technological superiority against them, turning their weapons and tools into tools of rebellion. With each victory, the Kitar felt more emboldened. They saw themselves in the story of humanity, the underdog species that had survived time and time again, no matter how grim the circumstances. The Kitar were not alone. Across the galaxy, other oppressed species took note of the Kitar's success. The Isol, a peaceful aquatic species who had long been exploited by the Vron, a technologically superior race that had enslaved them for centuries, saw the example set by the Kitar and took inspiration. The Isol, who had always believed their only path was subjugation, began to form their own resistance networks. They adopted the same strategies, using their knowledge of the oceans and their natural abilities to fight back. Their rebellion was less violent than that of the Kitar, but it was no less effective. And as the Isol grew bolder, other species began to follow suit, seeing in their struggle the same glimmer of hope that had inspired the Kitar. The rise of the Underdogs was not just a series of isolated revolutions. It was a movement, a galaxy-wide resistance against the empires that had long dominated the galaxy. The power of this movement lay in the collective memory of survival, of knowing that, no matter how dire the circumstances, it was possible to rise. Humanity had shown that it was possible to defy the odds, and now the underdogs of the galaxy were doing the same. The once powerful Zythran Empire, which had relied on its overwhelming superiority to keep the galaxy in check, began to feel the pressure. The rebellion, once seen as a series of inconsequential uprisings, grew into something far more dangerous. The Kitar, Isol, and countless other species once thought powerless had begun to unite. They shared knowledge, strategies, and resources, and in doing so, they formed a new kind of alliance. They were no longer the underdogs. They were the force that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity, watching from the sidelines, saw what was happening. They had long since evolved from a species of mere survival to one of leadership and influence. Their history, their struggles, had inspired these underdog species, but now it was their turn to step forward. Humanity joined the movement, offering guidance, resources, and knowledge. It was not just a matter of fighting back anymore, it was about forging a new future, one in which the underdogs of the galaxy had a voice, a seat at the table, and the power to shape their own destinies. Together, the galaxy's underdogs fought not just for survival, but for a new era of freedom and equality, one where their survival was no longer in question and their potential was limitless. As the Zythrans fell and the old powers crumbled, the galaxy witnessed the rise of a new era. It was an era shaped by the underdogs, by the species who had learned from humanity's history of survival and who had fought together to create a future where every species, no matter how small, how weak, or how oppressed, had the chance to thrive. And in the heart of that new era, humanity's legacy remained, a story of survival, of resistance, and of hope that would inspire the galaxy for generations to come.